Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers, 12:30, June the 26th, Rio de Janeiro time, and we are here for one more live stream. As usual, if you're here with us, you can suggest a topic of your interest for us to discuss. We have many friends who are going to come up very often, to participate, share their experiences. And that's another interesting point. If you have an experience in Brazil as a foreign citizen, and if you see some topic that's being discussed, feel free to chime in and share some of your stories. So our live stream is going to become more exciting for everyone. Let me see if we have any participation so far. Not yet, so let me start by answering a common question here at the live stream regarding currency exchange rates. When foreign citizens they come to Brazil, of course they are going to need to exchange currency. Let's say if someone is coming from the United States, they have a bank account with Chase, with Bank of America, with Wells Fargo, with any given bank, and they want to buy things in Brazil, and of course they need to buy things in Brazil because they're traveling or they're living here under a digital nomad visa and so on. So they are going to need to exchange their currency. And there are different routes, and different routes with substantially different currency exchange rates. The worst rate possible ever is when you go to the ATM. Okay, some ATMs they are going to be worse than others, and I'm going to give you a reference of a good ATM machine. All right, so if you go to a Bradesco bank, they have a bunch of ATMs inside the hall, and Bradesco usually gives you like a somewhat okay currency exchange rate. Just to give an example, if today one US dollar is buying 5.4 Brazilian reais, and if you go to Bradesco, and then I'm just gonna guess, right, like based on my experience, but you could be getting something like maybe 4.8 reais instead of the 5.4 reais, which would be the kind of market rate. So just right there, you're losing, let's say, 0.6 reais in the exchange, and this loss is actually the compensation for the bank that is handling the currency exchange on your behalf. Okay. Now it gets much worse. There is a very common ATM machine that we call in Brazil the 24 hours. Okay, and you would find this ATM within malls. Like if you go to any given mall, it does not matter the city. It could be São Paulo, it could be Rio de Janeiro, it could be Fortaleza or a small town in another state, and you are in a kind of a major commerce or business center. They are going to have the so-called Banco 24 hours or 24-hour bank, which is basically an ATM, and this ATM is actually running different brands on it. So, for instance, Bradesco would run on this ATM, Banco do Brasil, Banco Itaú, and so on. But the problem is, this ATM, usually they are going to charge you a really large fee for exchanging the currency, and they are not going to allow you to exchange currency enough to make the fee that they are charging, like they charge a fixed fee. And if you're just exchanging, for instance, 100 reais, and you're paying 25 reais in fees, it means that you are losing 1/4 of your money, okay, which is much more than what you would pay in terms of fees if you go directly to Banco Bradesco instead of using this type of generic ATM machine. So that's the first tip regarding currency exchange. And then when you're sending money to Brazil, also people are going to say, well, how can I get the best exchange rate? And there is a very easy answer. If you want to send like small amounts, right? Like meaning you're not sending more than $10,000. Most probably than not, Wise.com, like the new name for TransferWise. I think, in my opinion, they represent the best deal because usually their fee is going to be less than 1% of your transaction, meaning that they are charging less than 1% as compensation to exchange your currency, and they are pretty stable and pretty safe, right? Like we can never foretell the future, but based on the past, I think Wise is pretty solid. Most people are going to use Wise without any major hiccups. Okay, so that's why I usually recommend Wise. And again, the fee that I see the Wise company charging for a currency exchange in Brazil is going to be usually 0.8% of the total currency being sent. All right, now let's talk about over $10,000. Whenever you're sending over $10,000, you cannot send it through an app, and that's by design. That's actually a requirement from the Brazilian Central Bank. The Brazilian Central Bank says, listen, up to $10,000, we're going to have something more flexible, so you could deal with an app just like Wise and send the money. But if you are sending over $10,000, I'm not going to allow you to send it through an app, and then you're going to need to actually hire a regular bank to handle your transaction. And the way this is going to work is like this. You're going to send the money from the United States. So if you have a Chase bank account, for instance, it should take you a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, to enter all the recipient's bank information, and then you make a wire transfer to Brazil. Chase is going to charge you $40, right? So the $40 is going to be the compensation for Chase Bank to send the wire to Brazil. And by the way, it does not matter how much you're sending. If you're sending $100, Chase is going to charge you $40. If you're sending $100,000, Chase is going to charge you $40. If you're sending $1 million to Brazil, Chase is going to charge you the same $40. And this dynamic is going to be the same across the board. It does not matter which bank you're using, if it is in the United States or if it's in the UK or if it is in France. All the banks, they are consistent in a way that to send the money over, they are going to charge a fixed small amount. Now, the big hit, right, like where your money is going to be actually spent and retained is going to be at the recipient bank. And why the recipient bank? It is because when your money arrives in Brazil, it never shows up automatically into the recipient's bank account. Instead, the bank is going to trigger, or the bank is going to start a full compliance process of the money that you sent to Brazil. So, for instance, a very repetitive example we have here in our live stream, because that's something of interest to our viewers. Like if you're sending money to buy real estate, the bank, once the bank receives, let's say if you're sending $200,000, the bank is not going to release again the $200,000 into the seller's seller/recipient's bank account. The bank is actually going to ask for a bunch of documents. For instance, the purchase agreement, the deed for the property. For some sellers, they are going to ask, and depending on the amount, they are going to ask for the seller's tax return and other documents. And only after the bank go over all of these documents, and believe me, it's not just a matter of presenting. The banks, they are usually going to read the contracts and make sure that everything is consistent. Only after this review, the bank is going to authorize the currency to be exchanged and be released into the seller's bank account. So because of all of this red tape, bureaucracy, right? And trust me, the Brazilian financial system, okay, people who work in the financial system, they think this way of handling a transfer is the most amazing way in the world, right? Like, I think it's very cumbersome. I know that that's not how the United States does. The United States is gonna actually release most of the amounts. Like it could be 100,000, it could be 500,000 U.S. dollars, and if they believe there was fraud or something, then they are gonna investigate. But in Brazil, we do it backwards. Like we investigate first and we release later. And again, people from the financial industries in Brazil, they are gonna think that this is like the most beautiful and amazing approach ever. Okay, I disagree. All right, let me go back to our chat. I see here we have some friends joining us, but I'm not sure if we have any participation so far. If you are in our chat right now, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Please like our live stream so we can show up for other people searching about Brazil. And later on, once our live stream becomes a recording, this recording is also going to show up for more people. And if you're here, just say hi. I want to see who among our friends are here today. Let me see. I don't see any participations in the chat so far. All right, let me refresh. Maybe there is something going on with our chat. I'm gonna close our chat window and reopen our chat window to see if there are any participations so far. Not that I can see. Maybe today we just have like the shy participants, but let's proceed. Let's proceed with our content about Brazil. And, talking about currency exchange, you probably know that the US dollar is pretty strong against the Brazilian currency right now. And therefore, not surprisingly, we are seeing a big uptick in real estate transactions in Brazil. Traditionally, foreign citizens buying property in Brazil, they are going to kind of experience a buyer's market. Not surprisingly, like for a high amount purchases in Brazil, not a lot of people are going to have the cash at hand. So if a foreign citizen is coming to Brazil and they have the cash to buy the property without finance, they are going to be in a better position to buy the property, and are usually going to be able to command the specifics for this transaction. Now, interestingly enough, many buyers, they kind of not sure how to say, but like let's start from a different perspective. Realtors in Brazil, they are trained, they are well trained to really bring a prospective buyer to the table and push this prospective buyer to make an offer. Okay, so even though, for instance, usually they have the upper hand, not surprisingly, they are going to be many times, or very often, they are going to be kind of pushed around by a local realtor, which is very interesting, because we see like wealthy foreign citizens coming from abroad, very educated people, and then sometimes they are being pushed around by a realtor who has little formal education. Okay, for those of you who don't know, like the admission exam for realtors is not like a super high level, right? Or it's not really that demanding. So particularly in some areas of the country, like the Northeast, like the North, you're going to see some realtors who can barely write a letter, okay? And again, the interesting thing here is that they're still able to push around, like pretty sophisticated buyers. So that's always amusing to us. And of course, whenever they're trying to do that with a client of ours, we're gonna schedule a Zoom call, and we're gonna explain. Listen, you don't need to show that much attachment to this property, because it's a negotiation, and if you wanna get a better price, if you wanna buy under the correct circumstances, you need to retain control of the transaction. All right. I hope that makes sense. All right. I see Donna. Donna, good day to everyone. Good day, Donna. Good to see you over here. The Stork too. I would have taken your retirement visa service, but your fee was a bit too high. I hear the Stork. Absolutely. Our fee is set for a specific type of public, and there are many options out there for immigration services, and it's just natural that our fee is not going to work for everyone. We don't have the intention to compete on a fee basis. But thank you for sharing, and I understand, I appreciate, and I'm sure there are other quality attorneys out there. I cannot tell you which ones are going to provide the same level of service that we do, but I do know that there are many other professional law firms out there. All right, the Stork number two. Can you discount it for me? The Stork. So that's an interesting question. The thing is, like, at the same time, we are interested to bring you aboard. Like, we are always happy whenever we can assist a foreign citizen in their journey in Brazil. We are actually helping a lot of other people who are paying like the full price. So my personal concern is, like, if we give you a discount, that would make our pricing unfair for those who are paying full price. Another thing interesting for you to take into consideration, right? Particularly for the retirement visa, pretty often we're gonna be working with a prospect between 6 months to a year, okay? And given that the retirement visa, it does require a large number of documents. You're gonna need like an explanation and support for every single document, and it's just like a lot of work. Okay, I don't think we can work for less than what we charge, and my personal opinion is that the price is just right. It's not higher than what it should be, and it's not lower than what it should be. It's the correct price for us to provide the service that we provide. And again, this is going to vary from firm to firm. That's our take on the fee. Okay, the Stork. So I hope you understand. The 552 Stork. I think the fee is fairly priced. Thank you, the 552, and you get what you pay for. I heard in a previous stream that it was about 1,000. That's like multiple times lower than the average monthly wage in America. Thank you for chiming in, the 552. And it is a massive work, right? Like, I mean, some people, they think it's just like a checklist. You're going to deliver the documents. We're going to, like, combine the documents and present to the immigration. In my experience, it's a lot of work. It's massive work. Usually in a retirement visa application, we are working with this applicant for so many months. Sometimes they are going to need to use our address in the United States. They are going to need to use our address in Brazil. They are going to need advisory, because the retirement visa is just a piece of the foreign citizens planning for Brazil. And sometimes they have questions when it is related to the retirement, visa application. We're gonna provide so much advisory, right? Like, I mean, it's really certainly worth the price. Mario, boa tarde, Mario. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the live stream, Mario. And if you have any topics of your interest, let us know, and we're gonna discuss here lively. Okay. All right. Okay, what else we have? Okay, we have another. We have a question here that was sent right before the live stream started. It was about the digital nomad. It's a kind of repetitive question. We always address. I would say at least once a month, but I'm gonna address over here. So the person has asked like this: Listen, I have a plenty of income. I can show whatever income is being required by the immigration authorities. However, I don't have a work contract, right? Can I still apply? Can I still apply for the digital nomad visa? And there are two components to this answer. The first component is money alone or money by itself is not enough, okay? Because if like for the digital nomad, if you have 18,000 US dollars in a bank account, you are clear from the financial side, right? You're clear from the financial perspective to get the visa. But let's say if the Brazilian government says, you know what, I don't care if you are really working, this visa should not be considered or be named like the digital nomad visa. Instead, in my opinion, it should be called the $18,000 visa, because that's all it takes. You have 18,000, you get a visa, and that's not really the spirit of the digital nomad visa, right? The digital nomad visa is targeting a certain type of individual, and that this person is going to have the means to stay in Brazil is just a piece of the requirements. The other piece is that this person is actually working, okay? So that's my first. That's the first part of my answer for that question. The second part is gonna be the Brazilian immigration, specifically for the digital nomad visa. They are not gonna be super strict in terms of what you're gonna be using to show that you work. Okay, so in our experience, like almost everyone that will come to us, they have some type of work activity out there. Again, it doesn't need to be regular employment. It doesn't need to be a contractor, a relationship. It could be even like a freelancer, as long as you can show this to the Brazilian immigration in a positive manner, right? Like, and I'm not talking about lying. I'm just talking about taking something that you are already doing out there and explaining to the Brazilian immigration in a way that is going to make sense for the purpose of securing the digital nomad. Okay, so it's not an absolute answer. The first part is like like money enough. Money alone is not enough, but on the work component, right? As long as you're doing something out there, most probably than not, we can help you qualify for the digital nomad. Okay, so one more question answered. All right, we have a Mario. When is it time to renew the retirement visa after a year? Are they strict about the $2,000 a month, minimum of 24,000 a year? Mario, I'm not sure I can answer, because like for every single retirement visa applicant that we bring aboard, we're gonna tell them, listen, for the first application, you just need to show that you are making $2,000 a month, right? But when you renew, you're gonna need to show that you are actually sending the $2,000 a month to Brazil, and naturally, our clients, they are going to follow along. They are going to follow our advisory, and they are going to send the $2,000 a month to Brazil. And therefore, whenever we are handling a renewal, we haven't had any issues. But just because like the renewals are coming from our own clients so far, it may be the case that eventually someone is going to show up and say, I don't know, like I filed this visa with someone else, and now I want you to renew. And then we may face this type of question. But so far, every single applicant here at the firm has followed our advice in terms of actually sending the $2,000 a month. Okay. Now, if I had to guess, I think that the Brazilian immigration, when they are going to look at your financials for renewal, let's say if you just show like the 3 last months, and they see that for the last 3 months you sent $2,000 a month, right? I don't think they would say, well, I don't see the prior 9 ones, right? Like I just see 3, and therefore I'm gonna deny your visa, right? So or maybe if you sent like 9 months out of 12, right? Like you sent the $2,000 a month for 9 months out of 12, I don't think you would have an issue, because you could explain, listen, I couldn't send, I was, I don't know, like changing bank accounts in the US, or I had an issue with communicating with my bank, I was traveling, whatever you're gonna explain, as long as you're trying to follow reasonably the commands from the Brazilian immigration, they will always try to get you approved. All right, Mario. I hope that was helpful. WS Bill, hi Bill, welcome here. Bill is here every single live stream. I really appreciate Bill. Bill says, Luciano, thank you for your response. You are definitely the best. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. I just wish I could have, even more time. But listen, Bill, remember what I said. Whatever you have in terms of plans, and of course, you are the one who's going to decide about that. But please feel free to share with the community, because in my experience, many times people have, people will have a question, but they are not sure. Maybe it's a silly question, or they wanted to share something that's more like specific to their situation. And not surprisingly, that could be the case, or that could be relatable for other people here at the live stream. So, Bill, please feel free. Like if you have any projects, if you have any ideas, if you have any Brazil-related topics, feel free to share over here, and I would be very pleased to discuss live. But yes, very happy to see you here, Bill. All right, Mario. Mario is sharing an example. Let's say if I put $1,000 in my Brazilian bank account in May, but in June I put 3,000, July I put 500, and August I put 3,500, so on and so forth. But meeting the minimum of 24,000 a year. Mario, I don't think you're gonna have an issue, okay? Because the spirit here, or the goal from the government, is for you to keep bringing money to the country. So there is not going to be a material impact on your case if you're sending different amounts, but at the end of the year you actually sent the total of 24,000. All right, Mario. So that's my opinion. Again, we didn't have a specific case like this, but I can tell you, like whenever it's possible, the Brazilian immigration is going to try to help you out. All right? Nolazak, muito obrigado for these conversations. Thank you, Nolazak. I appreciate. Good to see you over here. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's your first time. And, hope to see you again. And feel free to share the topics of your interest. Nolazak, Luciano, can you speak on part-time residents, how to structure everything to get to the permanent residencia from a temporary with visa? Okay. So, Nolazak, like it looks like you don't have a specific topic. So I will assume you're thinking, well, maybe I go to Brazil under a temporary residency, and eventually, just because I've been here in Brazil for a number of years, I'm going to secure the permanent residency, right? Like a very classic example is going to be Portugal, okay? Portugal is unbelievable, because in Portugal, if you go to Portugal to study And if you study for 5 years, it's a lot of study, right? A lot of studying. But if you study for 5 years in Portugal, guess what? You can actually apply for the citizenship. It's unbelievable. It's very different from Brazil, okay? In Brazil, for most temporary residencies, you're not going to qualify for permanent residency and you're not going to qualify for citizenship. So very different from Portugal, okay? So we need to specify the type of temporary residency that you're going to get. But, just like as an overview, most temporary residencies, they are not going to give you a track for either the permanent residency or the citizenship. I'm gonna even share, like a story of a friend of mine, like Max. Okay, Max. I met Max in São Paulo in 2012. Max is from San Francisco. He's a highly educated individual. Like he went to study in a bunch of places in the U.S. Additionally, he went, for studies in Switzerland, and he traveled, like throughout the world. But then in 2012, like we started a friendship, and then I can tell you that it took Max 7 years to become stable immigration wise in Brazil. And the only way that he was able to do so, he was through the purchase of real estate. Okay, unfortunately, I think it was in 2019. Both his parents passed away, and he got funds enough to purchase a property. He bought a really nice apartment in São Paulo, in Augusta. All right, for those of you who know São Paulo, Avenida Augusta or Augusta Avenue. And he bought like a really large apartment, a really nice apartment, and he hired our services to assist with that. But it was only at that point that Max was finally able to secure a more longer term residency, and then of course open the door for the citizenship later on. All right, so I hope that was helpful. The Stork too. So based on my understanding, and as I have retired, it looks like the retirement visa is a bit difficult based on what you said. What would be the easiest visa for me to get with your service? Stork, it's not that you're not gonna get it, okay? It's just a pain in the neck, and I'm gonna be very specific. I'm gonna give you an example for you to understand. Brazil is going to ask for at least 4 different documents to be apostilled in the United States, right? For the retirement visa, they are going to ask you for your FBI background check. They are going to ask you for your apostilled birth certificate. They are going to ask for an apostille on your retirement bank account, summary. And they are going to ask, believe it or not, that this is like very typical of the Brazil immigration. They are going to ask for a letter from your bank saying that you are able to wire funds abroad. And not surprisingly, many banks, they're going to say, what? I don't get what you're saying, but not here. Go, play this kind of red tape, excessive bureaucracy nonsense elsewhere. Okay, so this is just like an example of the challenges brought by the retirement visa, but it's not difficult. Let's say as long as you have income, retirement income over $2,000, yes, you will qualify, and as long as you endure the pain of obtaining these documents and working through the process, you should get the retirement. All right, Stork. So. I was just emphasizing for you guys to understand that it's not just a checklist that you're going to check, all right? It's a lot of hard work for you to get there. That's what I was trying to emphasize, but I want to make sure that it's also clear that you can get there. Another challenge we have, Stork, like I don't recall if you ever shared your age with us, and I'm not asking about your age, But another challenge we have here at the firm is that sometimes, applicants, particularly when they are in their 70s or 80s, they are not really proficient in technology, and it becomes like very challenging for us to go back and forth. Sometimes we say something, the applicant doesn't understand, and then we need to get in a Zoom, a meeting with the applicant, and then eventually this person starts to become upset. But they are not upset because of us, but they are upset because of the challenges of using a computer system or communicating with the health department in case they need to reissue their birth certificate. So all of that, it does add up to the challenges I see for the retirement visa. But again, I'm not saying that you should not pursue the retirement visa. All right, Stork, I hope that was helpful. Nola Zach, yes, that's correct. Correct, Luciano. The 552, is it true that you also help with the Portugal Golden Visa? So we are in a transition, the 552, because the Portugal Golden Visa has actually, not sure if you guys know about that, but there is no Portugal Golden Visa for real estate anymore. And from a legal perspective, like, we are experts in real estate for a long time. Like, we've been doing real estate transactions for 2 decades, cross-border, different countries. Now, Portugal Golden Visa is no longer accepting the purchase of real estate, and the reason for that is because, like, Portugal is a tiny country, right? Like, I think you guys know about that. It's a tiny country, particularly when compared to Brazil. Brazil has continental dimensions, right? So in Portugal, like, the local population, meaning Portuguese people, they were saying, listen, look at those gringos, right? Like, they're coming from the United States. They sell a house in California for $2 million. And they come here with, $500,000. They can buy whatever they want, right? So there was a really strong pushback from the Portuguese population against the Portugal Golden Visa. Okay. Now, the upside is that they are now opening up different routes. And there is one route is being asked here in this live stream a bunch of times by several people. Portugal is starting to accept money in real estate funds, right? So Portugal is no longer allowing people or applicants for the Golden Visa to buy property. But listen, your money is still good. So if you have money and you want to invest in the financial system, Portugal is still allowing the Golden Visa. And yes, like, we work with different routes for the Golden Visa, the 552, but I thought the distinction in terms of real estate was worth mentioning. The WS Bill, don't forget to like the live stream. I appreciate it, Bill. Bill is always helping us out, keeping our friends here reminded of liking, like, the live stream. It does help us a lot. I appreciate Bill. I appreciate every one of you who is liking our live stream. All right, Ronnie, welcome, Ronnie. Good to see you over here. If I buy a home for 500,000 reais, but only make 1,200 US dollars a month, retirement, will the house be considered towards retirement visa? Ronnie, so if you read the Brazil retirement visa regulation, they do have a workaround. Let's say if you don't make $2,000 a month. Okay, the workaround is going to be like this. Listen, if your income is not enough for you to achieve the 2,000, you can use additional income from something else to complement your income. And that's pretty much the language. That's pretty much the language from the regulation. Okay, it's not my language, it's the language from the law. And the meaning for language is you're gonna need to pay, or you're gonna need to be receiving most of these $2,000 it gotta come from a traditional retirement account. Okay, so it could be Social Security, it could be a 401k, it could be an IRA, it could be annuities, it could be a bunch of things, right? But if this main account, let's say it achieves just like, I don't know, 1200, and then the meaning for the language from the regulation is that you could, then bring the $800 from your house rental income into the calculation to help you meet the 2000. Okay, Ronnie. So rental income is not retirement income, at least from the Brazilian perspective, but you can use rental income to complement your traditional retirement income. All right, Ronnie. Nolazak. The real estate purchase scenario is the avenue I could go down, Luciano. I've looked at apartments in Rio. I have a CPF number and a visa, but only can stay up to 6 months legally. Nolazak, it sounds like a good position to be in. Like, I don't think you are in a bad position, particularly if you like to travel. We have a bunch of clients who actually say, listen, I don't want to stay in Brazil longer than 6 months a year. So they will pick a few countries, like to never stay longer than 6 months in order to avoid the tax residency, right? For I would say most of you probably know by now, once you've been in Brazil for over 183 days, you're going to become a tax resident. And it doesn't matter your legal status or the type of visa or residency. Once you cross the 183 days in Brazil in any given moving 12-month period of time, you're going to be a tax resident, right? Like, meaning you need to present your global income to Brazil. All right, so not a bad position. Okay, now listen, if you want to secure the golden visa, I understand some people, they don't want to keep traveling around the world, globe trotting around the world. So if it's your plan to really stay in Brazil for the long term, by all means, go after the golden visa. But if you're still in a stage of your life in which you like to travel, not a bad place to be. The 552, Portugal has an option for a donation route for artistic contributions. Do you think Brazil could do a similar thing in the future? The 552, indeed, like Portugal has some very creative routes. There was another route that was pretty interesting to me, the Sephardic Jewish route, right? Like, meaning that if you were a Jew of a Sephardic tradition, that you could apply, but they got rid of it. So there are a bunch of creative tracks for immigration into Portugal, but Brazil traditionally is not really creative, right? Actually, I would say that not most, but 100% of the new creative, flexible visas that you see in Brazil, they came from President Bolsonaro, right? The prior federal administration. So before President Bolsonaro, Brazil immigration was it was like in the Stone Age, okay? It would be basically, like a work visa. If you come to Brazil, you need a sponsor. Very difficult for someone to want to sponsor in Brazil. So it was a very rare door of entry for foreign citizens. There was the marriage route, right? Like, there was the family reunion. Maybe, like, I don't know, like 10 different visas, but pretty basic, right? Like those type of visas, they are super traditional, like marriage route, okay? A family route, right? Like those routes. After President Bolsonaro, we got all of the new things, right? Like a digital nomad, retirement, golden visa, and so on. So President Bolsonaro is no longer in power, right? So now we have President Lula, who's the same president that was in control of Brazil before President Bolsonaro. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they are going to look at what President Bolsonaro did and they're going to say, you know what, now we need to come up with some kind of new visas. And to tell you the truth, there is one that we know about, which is like the only one I heard so far coming from the new federal administration, is the the so-called green visa, meaning that if you're gonna invest in like in eco projects, right, like projects developing or protecting the environment, or developing new technologies to protect the environment. This is going to be a kind of facilitated route, right? So that's a kind of pretty innovative visa, but that's the only one I know so far, and I don't think the donation route would be available in Brazil, the 552. But traditional Portugal is more flexible, nimble, and easier to immigrate than Brazil, believe it or not, and much easier, not just a little bit easier. Portugal is much easier, right? Now, if you guys search for an interview I did, I think it was a couple of months ago, with a foreign citizen, and I'm trying to remember his name. I apologize for that. But I was asking him, listen, why not choosing Portugal, right? Like, it was just part of the conversation, and he was like, he was saying, listen, I don't have any desire to stay in Portugal, like even to travel to Portugal, right? What you say, to live in Portugal. So he was completely, resistant to the idea of even traveling to Portugal, right? Like, so. What I'm trying to say here, like, when people like Brazil, they really like it, and there is no replacement. But Portugal and Brazil, both Portuguese-speaking countries, both Latin culture countries, but still a lot of differences. For instance, Brazil has continental dimensions. Brazil is a much younger country, and yes, there are other distinctions, of course. But just emphasizing that from an immigration perspective, Portugal is a much better choice if you want something easy, okay? All right. Nolazak, thank you for the info. I didn't know that. Pretty welcome, Nolazak. Keep the participation coming. Good to see you here. Your first day. Lots of interesting participations. I want to see you again in our live stream. Kitwell, all right, Kit, so good to see you back. Olá, seu Luciana, tô indo pro Brasil semana que vem. Eu vou tentar procurar CPF from the Receita Federal. I'll let you know how it goes. I'm not optimistic. So Kit is saying he's coming to Brazil. Kit, where are you going? Are you coming to Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, Fortaleza? I'm just curious. What are your places of choice? And yes, Receita Federal and Kitty is basically saying he will apply for the Brazilian tax ID, known as a CPF, and the Receita Federal it's usually just like everything else in Brazil, a lot of red tape. So last time we saw someone successfully getting a tax ID from Receita Federal. They would go there, have a first interview. They would give this person a list of documents, and then the person would need to return for a second round of meeting with the Receita Federal, which translates as the Internal Revenue System, for a second meeting. And as long as you would have all the documents at that time, you would get the CPF. Now, very unfortunate that in October of 2023, it would be possible for you, Kit, to apply via email. It was super easy. It would take you literally like 20 minutes for you to assemble the email with the forms, with the pictures, and they would send you the tax ID known as a CPF for free in 10 days. Okay, but that route, once the new administration took over, they got rid of the route. They said, too easy. Let's not make the lives of our American friends that easy. Let's make it a little bit more difficult, right? Like, I mean, of course, I'm joking here. Uh, uh, Actually, this kind of facilitated track, it was started because of the pandemic, right? So that was the reason for the, tax ID via email route. But it was working wonderfully, right? Like, I mean, maybe it could have been kept, but the new administration decided to get rid of it, and now there you are, Keith. You're gonna, try your luck at the Receita Federal. Just for you guys to know, whoever is hiring our services for anything, right, like Visa or real estate transactions, we do issue the CPF ourselves for the purpose of that particular service, but we are not issuing CPFs on a standalone basis. Okay, we did that in the past, but now because of the commitment, like you actually need to give us the powers to apply on your behalf, so there is some somewhat a level of liability on our side to represent you. So we said, you know what, like this is not a service. We're not gonna charge people to apply for a CPF. But if you're hiring our services for immigration, if you're hiring our services for real estate, guess what? We're gonna give you the CPF for free. All right, but Kitty, do us a favor. Let us know how it goes, and this is gonna be a nice topic for our conversations here. The Stork 2, I have a CPF, I am a 63 years old, and I'm good with tech. Glad you know, Stork. So if my retirement income is a bit more than 1,000, you're saying that retirement visa is off the table. Absolutely, Stork. Like if your income is just like a little bit over 1,000, unless you can bring additional retirement, right? Sorry about that. Additional income from something different, you're not going to be able to secure the retirement. Okay, the retirement visa is not going to be issued unless you have $2,000 in income. And retirement income, again, I like your example. My retirement income is a bit more than 1,000. Let's say the Stork, that your retirement income is $1,050. As long as you can bring 950 from a different source, and then this different source doesn't need to be retirement. It could be like a property rental. It could be, I don't know, like like stock investments and whatever you can present. Then yes, then this is going to help you achieve the $2,000 a month, Stork. Let me know if that makes sense. 552, thanks for the info, Mr. Oliveira. Thank you, 552, for the questions. Kituel, Goiânia, and Brasilia. All right, good choices. Goiânia is more like in the countryside. I used to go to Goiânia when I was a kid with my father. Like he used to buy farms in Goiás, right? Goiânia is the capital of Goiás. Goiás is a very rural state still nowadays. And so my father was to travel to Goiânia, and I would travel with him in many of his trips, sometimes, to buy and sell real estate, right? Now from where I got my, this whole dedication to real estate transactions in Brazil. I've been doing that at a certain capacity since I was a kid, and I would review the farms with my father. I was, like between my 8 years old, then that was the earliest I remember, up to my probably 13 years old, and then after that, my father, he stopped investing in real estate. At least in Goiás, all right? But good choice. Brasilia, as you guys probably know, is the capital of Brazil. That's where you have pretty much all the embassies. They are located in Brasilia. And Brasilia is a pretty nice city, pretty interesting. Brasilia, it was conceived from the scratch. Like there was nothing there. I think it is one of the few cities, large cities in the world, maybe the only capital ever been, conceived from the scratch as a project, right? So still nowadays, when you see Brasilia, it looks like very interesting. It's not something that you grew organically. You can see that everything is there by design, and it does bring you like a kind of different perception of the city. So I do recommend. I mean, if you have maybe 5 cities only to visit in Brazil, Brasilia would be one of my picks for sure. Really worth a visit. Alright, Kitwell, visitando com amigos de meu intercâmbio em 1997. Minha primeira vez no Brasil em 27 years. Minha próxima viagem vai ser para o Nordeste. So cool. So Kitty he is saying he did like intercâmbio, meaning he came for studies in Brazil 1997, or maybe Brazilian friends went to study in the United States in 1997. So Kitty is meeting with his friends. It has been 27 years since since meeting these Brazilian friends, and his next trip is gonna be to the Northeast. I am in the Northeast right now. I am in Fortaleza, Ceará, and I also love the Northeast. That's probably my place of choice in Brazil, and I would say different people with different goals, with different stages of their lives, they are gonna have a different cities of choice, and there is a choice for everyone. There is no right or wrong choice. It's just a matter of what is going to work for you at this moment. Okay, that's my belief. Royland Walker, that's great news for the CPF. Yes, Royland, we're going to be pleased to help you. Kitwell, I've read the IRS, they're pretty strict about having an appointment ahead of time, but I can't do that because I don't have a CPF, and the process is a bit hard to understand, so I would try to just show up. Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, they're gonna teach you how to book the appointment, kids. Not a problem. Maybe you're gonna make some friends over there. Okay. Royland Walker, with a retirement visa from Brazil, could I live in other South American countries? If so, for how long? Royland, I never studied, or I don't have enough information to answer this question, but I do answer something similar to this question, and this question goes like this. Listen, I am a resident in Uruguay. I'm a resident in Paraguay, right? And can I live in Brazil because I have a residency somewhere else, right? And my answer is that most probably not, and I can explain why. Because for you to live in Brazil, you needed the RNM card, which is the card for foreign citizens residing in Brazil. And in order for you to obtain this resident card, you need to obtain an immigration benefit. And I know the immigration benefits framework, and there is nothing, at least that I know, saying something like this. Listen, if you live in another South American country, you happen to be able to apply for residency in Brazil. Not that I know, so I don't think, Royland, that would work. Of course, like my example is inverted, right? Like I'm talking about someone from another country coming to live in Brazil, and you're saying, well, if I get the retirement in Brazil, can I go live in another country? You would most probably, Royland, be restricted to the regular timelines for visitation, which customarily is like 90 days in South America. But I don't think you can live on a permanent basis in another country. All right, Kitwell, macaxeira, coxinha e pamonha estão em meu futuro. All right, these are three main staples in Brazilian food, right? Macaxeira is a kind of hoot. I don't recall the name in English. It's pretty common in Spanish culinary as well. Coxinha, I never saw in any other country. is like, basically a chicken meat with a special type of you know cover. Like, I mean, I'm not sure the name of the, the other component, but coxinha is like a type of snack. It is something that, let's say, if you are, like if you are on the streets, like, and you don't want to stop to go eat in a restaurant, you could drop by in a bakery or in a small like food location and grab a coxinha, and then you could go eat your coxinha while you're walking, on the street. Okay, that's something, like that. Pamonha is very typical of June, of the month of June in Brazil. In June in Brazil, we have the so-called festas juninas, or the June parties, right? Like, meaning the parties that happen in the month of June. And these parties, they are based on a specific saint, a Saint John, right? Saint John in Brazil. It's related to the month of June. And then there are very traditional parties, dances, music, and food throughout the month of June. Some of the Brazilian states, they do a little bit of partying in July, but the tradition is the specific month of June. Okay, so Keith, I'm sure you're still gonna find the pamonha, right? Pamonha is a kind of it's not a candy; it's more like a dessert made of corn, but it's very traditional for the June parties. All right. Okay, I see here we have been together. It has been a pleasure for about an hour. And we're going to be ending our live stream soon. I'm going to ask you guys again if any of you still need to like our live stream. I will appreciate if you do so. We're going to be together again on Sunday. We're going to be together again on Sunday at the usual time. Usual time is 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time. And if you didn't have a chance to ask your question, save your question for Sunday. I hope to see you again. I'm going to make sure to create the link for our live stream on Sunday right after this live stream. So 5 minutes from now, you can go back to our YouTube channel and click on Notify Me. This is going to help you remember that the live stream is going to be starting, and then you can join us for more conversations. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your Wednesday, and see you again on Sunday.